we open on mountains and sky. We open on blackbirds wheeling and circling and diving against a dark gray cliff. And we open on a man standing atop that cliff and looking out over the mountains and the sky and the birds and the valley below, covered in pine trees and a brushing of late autumn snow. We open on a thoughtful man, a man with an oath, and a man whose life is about to change. Welcome, traveler, to the Ironlands. This is the story of Cato Aleri, a man from the Veiled Mountains who has quite an interesting story ahead of him if, luck and the dice are with us. So, welcome. Thank you for being here today and watching this with me. I'm really excited. And we're just going to start off. The world has already been built. There are a couple of characters populating it. We're playing with the Ironsworn rules and just basic rules. And as the story progresses, you'll maybe pick some stuff up. But everything that needed setting up has already been done in session 0, which I will already have posted. So if you want to know the background of the world or any of the relationships of the characters or anything that seems unexplained, that's where I set everything up. That said, I'm not going to expect anybody to have watched that because it's kind of an hour of storytelling and setup and a bunch of different things. So if you are interested, you can go watch that. But for now, we have opened on this scene of Cato Aleri, who is on the cliffs outside of Ravencliff. Well, he's actually at the Ravencliff, and the birds that are cawing and diving and swooping around in the air below him as he looks out over the valley are the ravens who live in the cliff itself and give this settlement its name. I think we are going to be finishing what we started yesterday in session 0, vis-a-vis the campaign setup summary. So we had gotten all the way to number 5, envision your inciting incident and set the scene, which is essentially how we, in many RPGs that are group play, gathering in the tavern before they head off. So here's where everything happens before we set off. So in the coming play, we will envision an inciting incident and we will swear an iron vow and take our next steps. So Cato is out here on the cliffs. I think that he's probably thinking about deep matters relating to his sister and her goal, his sister, whose name I am going to remember as soon as I look it up. Mila, his sister, Mila, and her quest to bring her faith to all of the Ironlands and hopefully save the people. That's kind of a weighty problem that's weighing on his mind, but I think there's probably something else as well. So I'm going to go in here to an oracle and figure out what else is on Cato's mind as he hangs out by the cliff. Let's say, ask the oracle. No, we want a theme. And then we want another theme. So 2 interesting kind of things. Fellowship and time. Okay, so what that means to me is that what Cato is thinking about is the religion and the faith that his sister has been preaching in the settlement of Ravencliff, and that has been, spreading among the people, and he's thinking about how much time it took for that to happen, and then he's thinking, well, it took how long did it take for her to share her new religion? Let's roll a d4. Roll 1d4. And we got 2. So it took her, I think, two seasons of preaching. It took Mila 2 seasons of preaching her words in Ravencliff before her faith was, shared by the majority of the populace. I'm thinking of in the Veiled Mountains, right? There are these heavy snows and these dark winters that come and, get people away from the mountain every winter, and then they come back in the spring. So I'm thinking that there's kind of the 2 seasons of the year for people here. There's like winter, spring. There's like autumn, winter, and then there's winter. And they just kind of bleed into each other. So the 2 seasons where people are actually here and interacting are, winter going into spring, and then autumn going into winter, because there's no real summer. And it took her basically an entire yearly cycle to preach her, to spread her influence. And Cato is worried that there are so many settlements in the Ironlands. There's a huge amount of area to cover, and his sister is probably optimistic, but Cato is very broody. That's something that I think is important to his character. Is this kind of like shadowy bit about him where he's more prone to gloominess. But so Cato is here on the cliff. He is thinking about how long it will take for his vow to his sister to be fulfilled, and a boy arrives, and he comes running up the cliff, because the Raven Cliff is like probably a mile away from the actual settlement itself. So like maybe the cliff is here, and then there's like a hill that goes down to the settlement kind of beneath it, because this is a big ass cliff. And so this boy comes panting up, and he has his, he puts his hands on his knees, and Cato looks over, and what we see when what the camera sees when Cato turns is kind of a harsh, rugged face. I'm imagining that he has kind of a coarse, dark scrubble on his face, and maybe shaggy hair. But also, as he turns, this dark shape swoops in and lands with a flutter on his shoulder, and it's one of the ravens who is actually coming close to, land on his shoulder and maybe even nibble at his hair or his ear a little bit, like Odin's ravens landing on his shoulder on the throne in Valhalla. But Cato turns to the raven and he says to him, "What do you think, Barda?" No, I don't like that voice. What do you think, Barda? There we go. We'll just do a normal voice. What do you think, Barda? And the raven kind of cocks its head at the boy and squawks a ravenish noise. And Cato maybe preens the bird a little bit and says, "What brings you, boy?" Does he know this boy? Does he know this boy? I don't know. I think it's probably 50-50, so we will, in that case, roll a D100. Or we can just roll 2 D10s. The first one being the 10s, the second one being the units. So a 26. So a higher than a 50 would have been a yes. So less than 50, he does not know this boy. Maybe it's somebody from a new family in the settlement, or maybe somebody new who has arrived who has heard the word that his sister is preaching, and the fact that people are kind of gathering here, maybe. So the boy says to Cato something to get him to come back to town, and I think it's pretty urgent, but I don't know what it is. So I'm going to come back here and roll on action and theme in the Oracle tables and get overwhelm relationship. So overwhelm relationship, overwhelm the relationship, overwhelmment of relationship. Thinking about it. All right. So what this means to me is that the person is talking about a relationship that has a lot of force. That he was sent to bring Cato back for a very important relationship that will overwhelm Cato's desire to stay up here thinking gloomy thoughts. And so the boy explains this. And what relationship is it, I suppose? Well, let us look no further than Cato Aleri's 2 bonds, which are right here to Mila Aleri, who is his sister, to Ravencliff, and to Padma, who is the mystic who raised Cato and his sister after his parents disappeared, trying to seek wisdom where it was not meant to be sought. So the question is, which of these 3 relationships are which of these 3 relationships is the one that is being called upon by this runner who was sent, this young boy? So we are going to roll 1d6, and 1 to 2 it is something about Mila, 2 to 3 it's something about Ravencliff, and 3 to 4 or 5 or 6 it is Padma. So it is a 2. So it is something about Mila. Does the boy know what it is? Probably not. He was just sent to get Cato and was told that it was an urgent matter for the brother of the priestess. Maybe they call her. Maybe they call his sister the priestess. Yeah, I like that. So something for the brother of the priestess, and so he says, Sir, you have been asked for in the town. It's something about the priestess." And Cato nods, like he's not really worried about it, but the boy says, "No, please, I was sent by the mystic. You're needed most urgently." And Cato looks a little bit uncertain at that, and he leans and says something to the bird quietly, and the bird kind of looks at him for a moment, and then flutters into the air, takes off, and kind of swoops overhead, over the cliff, and then boom, down in the direction of the village. And so Cato says, "Lead on, boy." And the boy nods and turns around, and a little bit more slowly now because, hopefully that ambulance didn't come through. Probably did. And the boy, who is kind of still breathing a little bit heavily, kind of trudges down. I imagine there's like a well-worn path of people coming up to the top of the cliff to kind of look over this very beautiful view over the valley and the Veiled Mountains. So they're going down this track. It's probably pretty wide, some pine trees on either side. The snow that is on the trees in the valley is on the trees here, but on the path, it's been a couple days since it snowed. So on the path, it's mostly worn away to some puddles and a little bit of ice in places where the cold has frozen it, the melted snow overnight. So coming down the path a little bit more, a little less hastily than before, the boy leads the way, and Cato, brooding, follows. So I think that concludes the first scene of the adventure. I wanted to share something a little bit quick, kind of dramatic, and in order to see what happens next in Cato's story, we will have to maybe do a little bit of a cut to the next scene when he arrives in the village, and Padma, the mystic, has some information for him. So if you are interested and you want to hear more of this story, then you can watch that video. But for now, I didn't want to make anything too long that you would not be super excited about. So if you don't like it, no need to continue listening. But if you're interested, then go on to the next video, where Cato, in scene 2, will arrive at the village of Ravencliff and interact with the woman who raised him about something to do with his sister. So until then, however soon it is, I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and until we see each other again, keep telling stories.